Captain stood at the window of the Coalition's central hub, watching ships from 100 different worlds come and go. Some looked like floating crystals. Others were perfect spheres of light. A few didn't make sense to human eyes at all. After 200 years in the galaxy, he still found it beautiful. "Captain, they're ready for us," said Ambassador, adjusting her formal uniform. Nodded and followed her down the long hallway. His boots clicked on the smooth floor. The walls showed images of the galaxy's greatest moments. Humans appeared in a few of them. The first contact, the treaty signing, nothing recent. The council chamber was massive. Beings from 50 different species sat in a circle. At the center stood High Chancellor, a creature made of living crystal that reflected light in rainbow patterns. Had met him before. Was always polite but never warm. "Captain, Ambassador, welcome." His voice came from somewhere inside the crystal, clear as a bell. "Please take your seats." They sat in the human section. Lieutenant was already there, looking nervous. He was young, brilliant, and believed deeply in humanity's place among the stars. Began without ceremony. "We have called this session to discuss humanity's status within the Coalition. For 2 centuries, your species has been a member in good standing. You have followed our laws. You have traded fairly. You have caused no conflicts." Felt something cold settle in his stomach. This didn't sound like praise. "However," continued, "the Coalition must constantly evaluate the contribution of each member species. We have reviewed humanity's record extensively." Images appeared in the air above them. Charts, graphs, lists. They provide telepathic communication across the galaxy. The synthetics advance our technology by centuries each decade. The clans protect our borders. The ancient cores guide us with wisdom earned over millions of years. Paused. Humanity provides adequate service in multiple areas but excellence in none. Stood up suddenly. "That's not fair. We've explored more new systems than any species in the last 50 years. Our art and music are studied across a dozen worlds. Our diplomats have prevented 3 wars." "Please sit," Lieutenant said gently. "We acknowledge these contributions, but exploration is done better by the wanderer species. Art is subjective, and peace is maintained by our collective wisdom, not by any one species." Placed a hand on his arm, pulling him back to his seat. Her face was calm, but could see the anger in her eyes. "What are you saying, Chancellor?" asked, keeping his voice steady. "The Coalition has decided to reclassify humanity as an observer species. You may remain in Coalition space. You may trade with member worlds, but you will no longer have voting rights, seats on the Council, or access to joint military and scientific operations." The words hit like a physical blow, heard suck in a breath. His hand tightened on the armrest. "You're kicking us out," said. "Not at all," replied. "You may maintain your current status by demonstrating unique value to the Coalition, or you may accept observer status, or you may choose to leave the Coalition entirely. The choice is yours." "How long do we have to decide?" asked. 30 days. The meeting ended, and walked back to their ship in silence. The Perseverance was a good ship, human-made but upgraded with Coalition technology. Wondered if they would have to give that back too. The journey to Earth took 3 days. Spent most of it in his quarters staring at reports. 200 years of human effort reduced to a footnote. Not good enough. Unnecessary. When they arrived at Earth, President was waiting. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her office overlooked the Pacific Ocean, blue and endless. "Tell me everything," she said. Added details. Still angry, paced near the window. President listened without interrupting. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "General believes we should leave the Coalition," she said finally. "He thinks we've become too dependent on their technology, their trade routes. He wants humanity to stand alone again." "That would be a disaster," said. "We need the Coalition's resources. Our colonies depend on their support." "Chief Scientist agrees with you," replied. "She says isolation would set us back centuries." "What do you think, Madam President?" asked. Stood and walked to the window. "I think pride is a luxury we can't afford. If we leave, we lose everything we've built. If we stay as observers, we keep our connections. We keep learning. And maybe someday we prove them wrong. So we accept." His voice was bitter. "We accept," confirmed. "And we remember this feeling. We remember that the galaxy thinks we're unnecessary. One day we'll show them otherwise." The next few weeks were hard. Watched as human ships were recalled from coalition operations. His own crew was reassigned. The Perseverance was decommissioned, marked as surplus. Earth sent their acceptance to the coalition. Reply was brief and formal. "Your decision is noted. Observer status is now in effect." Across human space, people reacted differently. Some were angry, some were sad, some didn't care much at all, but everyone felt the sting of rejection. Took a job with a cargo company, hauling supplies between human colonies. It was honest work, but it felt small after commanding a coalition starship. Returned to Seoul University to teach. Her classes on alien politics were popular, but she found herself adding new lectures. Ones about how even the mighty can be wrong, how being underestimated might be an advantage. Her students listened carefully. Joined a mining corporation, working security on the outer colonies. He was good at it, but his heart wasn't in it. At night, he looked up at the stars and remembered what it felt like to be part of something bigger. On Earth, President addressed the planet. "We have been told we are unnecessary," she said. "I don't believe that. I believe every species has value. Every way of thinking matters. Our time will come again. Until then, we work. We learn. We remember who we are." The message spread across human space. It wasn't inspiring exactly, but it was honest, and it was enough. 3 years passed. Slowly, humans adapted to their new place in the galaxy. The sting faded, replaced by a quiet determination. They were observers now, unnecessary, redundant. But they were still human, still stubborn, still waiting. And the galaxy, vast and complicated and dangerous, kept turning. Pulled back on the throttle as his cargo ship approached the mining station. 3 years had changed a lot. The ship was his now, bought with savings and a loan. Nothing fancy, but it was reliable. He hauled food, equipment, and occasionally people between human colonies. It wasn't the Perseverance, but it was something. "Docking clearance approved, Captain," the station's computer voice said. Guided the ship into port, feeling the magnetic clamps engage with a solid thunk. The station was busy. Miners headed home after long shifts. Families waited for supply deliveries. It was normal life, quiet life, had learned to appreciate it. On Earth, finished her lecture on culture and dismissed her class. The students filed out, chatting about their assignments. She gathered her materials and checked her messages. Nothing urgent. Another normal day. Sat in a security office on the edge of human space, watching monitors. Asteroid miners came and went. Ships passed through. It was boring work most days, but it paid well. He told himself he was content. None of them watched the galactic news much anymore. It hurt too much, seeing the coalition thriving without them. New species joining, scientific breakthroughs, peace agreements, all happening without human input. But that day something changed. Was loading cargo when a passenger rushed up to him. "Captain, have you heard? The isn't responding." "What do you mean?" asked. "All communications are down. The coalition sent probes, but they're getting nothing back, just silence." Frowned. "Technical problems happened, even to advanced species. I'm sure they'll fix it." But they didn't. 3 days later, received a message from a former colleague in the coalition. 3 synthetic research stations had gone dark. No warning, no distress signals, just nothing. She called that night. His face appeared on her screen, older and tired. "Are you following the news?" she asked. "I try not to," he admitted. "You should start. Something's wrong." Started watching. What he saw worried him. More worlds going silent. A battle fleet sent to investigate one of the dark zones. They never reported back. Within 2 weeks, 12 coalition worlds had stopped all communications. No one knew why. No one had answers. President convened her advisors. Generals stood at the table, arms crossed. "This isn't our problem. We're observers, remember." "We're still part of this galaxy," chief scientist countered. "Whatever is happening, it could reach us too." Watched the star maps. Red marks showed the silent worlds. They formed a pattern moving inward from the galaxy's outer edge. "Keep monitoring, increase patrols near our borders, and wait." The coalition called an emergency session. For the first time in 3 years, they sent a message to Earth, not a request for help, just an invitation for observers to witness their discussions. President sent. Arrived at the central hub to find chaos. The council chamber was packed. Species that normally remained calm were shouting. Others sat in stunned silence. High Chancellor stood at the center, his crystal body dim. "Order, please. We must maintain order." The room quieted slowly. 37 worlds have now gone silent, began. "We have designated this threat as the Void Swarm based on limited observations from long-range sensors. They appear to be organic-synthetic hybrid vessels of unknown origin. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They attack, consume all resources and life, and disappear." A warrior, massive and covered in ceremonial armor, stood. "We have lost 6 battle groups trying to engage them. Our finest warriors gone. These enemies have no honor. They cannot be fought with traditional tactics." An ancient core, a being of pure energy contained in a sphere, spoke with a voice like wind through caves. "We have calculated their pattern. At current rates, the coalition will lose half its territory within 6 months. We have no solution." Sat in the observer section taking notes. Her hands shook slightly. Hundreds of billions of beings gone, and no one knew how to stop it. Back on Earth, couldn't sleep. He pulled up everything he could find about the attacks, the patterns, the few surviving reports. Something about it nagged at him. Noticed it too. In his security office, he analyzed the attack vectors. The swarm always hit the most advanced worlds first, the ones with the biggest power signatures, the most technology. He sent his findings too. They talked for hours comparing notes. "It's like they're attracted to advanced technology," said. "Or they target it specifically," replied. Returned to Earth with recordings of the coalition session. She met with President immediately. "They're terrified," reported. "The synthetics can't outthink them. They can't outfight them. They can't communicate with them. Everything that made the coalition strong is useless." "What about the ancient cores?" asked. "They're trying to calculate a solution, but they admit they don't have one yet." General spoke up. "We need to fortify our borders. If this swarm is moving inward, they'll reach human space eventually." "We need more information first," said. She had been studying the data brought back. "There are gaps in what the coalition knows. They're missing something." 2 months passed. The attacks continued. 40 worlds silent, 50, 60. Then found something. He was running supplies to a coalition refugee station when he detected a weak signal from a damaged probe. Inside, barely alive, was a young named. Her body was broken, but her mind still functioned. Got her to his medical bay and immediately called. "I have a survivor. She escaped her world." Arranged for to be brought to Earth. It took 3 days of careful treatment before she could communicate. When she did, the information was terrifying. Through telepathic impressions translated by human interface technology showed them what happened. The swarm didn't just attack randomly. They scanned each world first. They were searching for something specific. His team worked day and night analyzing memories. The breakthrough came at 3 in the morning. They're following a pattern, told President, a spiral moving toward the galactic core, and Earth. She pulled up a star map. We're directly in their path, 20 jumps away, maybe less. The room went silent. There's more, continued. Look at these energy signatures. The swarm scans for specific frequencies before attacking. High energy, advanced technology signatures. She pulled up another chart. But these frequencies, the ones they avoid, they match old human warp drives, the ones we stopped using when we joined the coalition. Watching the briefing remotely, felt something click in his mind. They're drawn to advanced technology, but they avoid primitive systems. That's insane, said. Our old technology is obsolete. Maybe that's the point, said quietly. Maybe being obsolete is an advantage. President looked at each of them. Keep working. If we're going to survive this, we need to understand it completely. The galaxy was dying and the mighty coalition had no answers. But humanity, unnecessary and forgotten, was starting to see a pattern, and with it, the shadow of an idea. The attacks didn't stop. Every day brought news of another world gone silent. The coalition was losing, and everyone knew it. In its laboratory on Earth, screens covered every wall. Each one showed different data about the void swarm, attack patterns, energy signatures, debris analysis. Sat in a special chair, sharing her memories over and over, trying to remember every detail. Had quit his security job and joined SI's team. His military training gave him a different way of looking at the data. He stood at a screen, moving markers around a star map. Look at this, he said. Every world the swarm hits has a power output over 10,000 terawatts. There was 15,000. The synthetic stations were even higher. Nodded, they're targeting high-energy signatures, but why? Maybe their sensors are calibrated for it, suggested. He had come to Earth to help, bringing his cargo ship. Like how some animals can only see movement. If you stand still, they can't see you. But we can't just turn off entire worlds, said. No, agreed, but we might be able to hide them. The idea was crazy. Everyone said so, but crazy was all they had left. President made a decision that shocked everyone. She contacted Chancellor directly. We want to help, she said simply. His crystal form seemed dimmer than before. Ambassador, I appreciate the gesture, but... We have a theory, she interrupted, about why the swarm attacks certain worlds. Let us test it. The coalition has the greatest minds in the galaxy working on this. And they're all failing, said bluntly. What do you have to lose? The coalition leadership debated for hours. 6 more worlds went dark during their discussion. Finally, desperation won over pride. Very well, said. What do you propose? Presented the plan to the Coalition Council, stood beside him, officially representing humanity again. It felt strange but right. The swarm targets advanced technology, explained. We propose testing this by reducing a world's power signature, make it look primitive, see if the swarm ignores it. A synthetic representative, its body made of living metal, spoke in a musical tone. That would leave the world defenseless. No, said, it would make the world invisible. There's a difference. The commander slammed a fist on the table. This is cowardice. We should fight. You've tried fighting, said quietly. How did that work? Silence answered him. They chose Prime for the test. It was next on the swarm's predicted path. A beautiful world with 12 billion inhabitants. They had 18 hours before the swarm arrived. Commanded a small task force of human ships. All of them used old technology, retrofitted from storage. The crews were volunteers, former coalition officers who trusted. Served as liaison with the government, managed tactical operations, monitored all sensors from a mobile lab. The hardest part was convincing the people to shut down their civilization. You want us to turn off our power grid? The Prime Minister asked, her blue skin pale with fear. Most of it confirmed. Keep only essential life support, switch to backup systems, old technology, low power output. We'll be helpless. You'll be invisible, said, trust me. The Prime Minister looked at her dying world on the screens. More refugees arriving every hour from other planets. Nowhere left to run. Do it, she ordered. The next 12 hours were chaos. Power plants shut down across the planet. Massive defense satellites went dark. Communications switched to primitive radio frequencies. The planet's energy signature dropped from 14,000 terawatts to less than 300. The coalition officers thought was insane. Even some of his own crew had doubts, but they followed orders. Monitored long-range sensors. Swarm signature detected. They're 2 hours out. Watched the planet below. Cities were dark except for minimal lighting. The mighty shields that protected Prime were offline. Everything that made this world strong was turned off. 1 hour, reported. Checked her readings. Power signature holding at 290 terawatts, well below their usual targets. 30 minutes. The bridge was silent, stood at the window watching, waiting. They're here, whispered. The void swarm emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare. Massive ships, organic and mechanical, fused together in ways that hurt to look at. 20 of them, each the size of a small moon. They moved toward Prime slowly, scanning. They're sweeping the planet, reported. Full spectrum analysis. They're looking for something. The swarm circled the planet once, twice, held his breath. Then, impossibly, they stopped. For 5 long minutes the swarm hung in space, seeming confused. Energy spikes on their ships, said. They're scanning again. Hold steady, ordered. Don't power up anything. The swarm circled a 3rd time. Then, without warning, they turned away. Their drives engaged and they jumped to hyperspace. Gone. The bridge erupted in cheers. Just closed his eyes, relief flooding through him. Prime was saved, without firing a shot. News of the victory spread across the coalition like wildfire. The impossible had happened. A world had survived. But didn't celebrate. Back in his quarters he sat within. This was one world, he said. The swarm will adapt, they'll learn. Then we need a permanent solution, said. We can't hide every world in the galaxy. No, agreed. We need to fight, but how do you fight something that adapts to every weapon? Pulled up her research. Days of analysis compressed into simple graphs. Look at what happened today. The swarm's sensors are incredibly advanced. They can detect quantum fluctuations, measure dark energy, track particles across light years. But when faced with simple, low-energy technology, they couldn't process it. Their strength is their weakness, said, understanding dawning. Exactly, confirmed. They're designed to fight advanced civilizations, enemies with powerful weapons, sophisticated defenses, complex strategies. They're not designed for simple, primitive analog technology. Stood up packing. An idea was forming, a crazy, desperate idea. What if we don't just hide, he said slowly. What if we fight them with primitive technology, weapons so simple their advanced defenses can't counter them? Kinetic weapons, said. Physical projectiles, chemical explosives. Mechanical guidance systems instead of computers, added. Human technology, finished. The kind we abandoned when we joined the coalition. They looked at each other. It was insane. It was impossible. It might work. President listened to their proposal via secure channel. Behind her, General shook his head in disbelief. You want to fight the most advanced enemy in galactic history with old technology? Asked. Yes, said simply. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. Do you know what the coalition called us? Unnecessary, redundant, not advanced enough. She leaned forward. Let's show them what unnecessary can do. Begin preparations. I'll coordinate with the coalition. The call ended. Looked at his small crew. Former officers, a teacher, a scientist, ordinary humans. "We're going to need help," he said. "Then let's get it," replied. Outside the window, Prime's lights began coming back on. 12 billion people were alive because humans had been underestimated. It was time to be underestimated again. Earth's shipyards hadn't been this busy in decades. Walked through the construction bay, watching workers strip advanced technology from old ships and replace it with equipment that museums had stored away. "This feels wrong," a young engineer said, removing a quantum computer. "We're going backward." "Sometimes backward is forward," replied. He found the person he was looking for at the far end of the bay. Was old, maybe 70, with hands from a lifetime of work. He had been Earth's leading expert on human warp drive technology before the Coalition made it obsolete. "They told me I was needed," said, not looking up from the engine he was examining. Didn't believe it. "We need someone who understands this old technology better than anyone alive." "Why?" "Because we're going to use it to save the galaxy." Finally looked at him. Then he laughed, a deep sound that echoed in the bay. "Well, that's the best reason I've heard in 30 years. When do we start?" The Coalition had been skeptical at first. Even after Prime, many didn't believe human technology could work in actual combat. But the swarm kept coming. 70 worlds silent now. 80. The death toll was beyond counting. Desperation was a powerful motivator. President negotiated directly with Chancellor. The Coalition would provide resources, raw materials, manufacturing capacity, logistics support. Humanity would provide the knowledge and the crews. General coordinated with Earth's defense forces. Factories that had been closed for years reopened. Old blueprints were retrieved from archives. Engineers who thought their skills were useless suddenly found themselves in high demand. But they needed something else. They needed pilots who could fly without computers, who could trust their instincts over sensors, who could be unpredictable. Founder in a small bar on Mars was drinking alone, staring at the wall. She had been the best pilot in her class at the academy, also the most reckless. She'd washed out for failure to follow standard procedures. "They told me you fly by feel, not by numbers," said, sitting down. "They told me I was dangerous," replied. "Said I'd get people killed." "Maybe, or maybe you'll save them." He slid across the table. "We're building a fleet. We need pilots who don't think like computers." Looked at the specifications. Old ships, primitive controls, manual everything. A smile slowly crossed her face. "When do I start?" The fleet came together over 6 weeks. 300 ships, all retrofitted with technology the galaxy had forgotten. That fired solid metal slugs, missile systems guided by mechanical gyroscopes, armor made of simple ablative materials instead of energy shields. Train the tactical officers. The hardest part was getting them to stop thinking like Coalition forces. "Forget everything you learned about modern warfare," he told a class of 50 officers. "The swarm adapts to patterns, to logic, to computer-predicted strategies, so we're going to be illogical, random, human." The officers looked confused. Watch brought up a simulation. Standard Coalition attack pattern, 3 waves, coordinated timing, computer-calculated approach vectors. The simulation played out. The swarm's defenses adapted instantly, destroying the attack. "Now watch this." He ran a new simulation. Ships came from random directions, some fast, some slow. No pattern, no coordination that a computer could predict. The swarm's defenses struggled, failing to adapt quickly enough. "That's insane," one officer said. "Exactly," replied. Worked with on the weapons systems. Modern energy weapons were powerful but predictable. The swarm's shields adapted to them within seconds. "Look at this," showed him footage from a battle. "They fire plasma torpedoes, beautiful weapons, incredibly powerful, and completely useless. The swarm's shields absorbed them after the first hit. But this, pulled up schematics of is just a chunk of metal moving really, really fast. How do you shield against that? You can't, said. Not easily. Physics is physics. Kinetic energy doesn't care how advanced you are. They tested the theory on an abandoned swarm ship that the Coalition had managed to capture. It was still dangerous, its systems active but dormant. A single shot punched straight through its hull. It works, said quietly. It works, confirmed. News came that the swarm was massing for a major attack. Intelligence suggested they were preparing to strike at the Coalition's core worlds. If those fell, the galaxy would collapse into chaos. The Coalition's remaining military forces would make a stand. Every ship they had, every weapon, every tactic. It would be the largest battle in galactic history. And it would probably fail. President addressed Earth and all human colonies. 3 years ago, the galaxy told us we were unnecessary. Today, they're depending on us. Our fleet will join the Coalition forces for the defense of the core worlds. We're not fighting for the Coalition. We're fighting for everyone, for the right of all species to exist. Show them what humans can do. Stood on the bridge of the Perseverance. They had found the old ship in storage and rebuilt it from the frame up. No quantum computers, no energy shields, just metal, fire, and human determination. His crew was assembled, at tactical, at communications, in engineering, at the pilot station, her hands already twitching, eager to fly. Fleet status, asked. All ships report ready, replied. 300 vessels, 20,000 crew. Coalition forces. 2,000 ships. They'll engage first, try to draw the swarm's attention. Nodded, the Coalition would be the hammer. Humanity would be the unexpected knife in the dark. They jumped to hyperspace together. 300 primitive ships heading into the largest battle the galaxy had ever seen. In his quarters, looked at a photo of Earth, blue and beautiful and fragile. For home, he whispered. The battle coordinates were near the core worlds. When they emerged from hyperspace, the sight stole breath. The swarm was massive, over 500 ships, each one enormous. They hung in space like a dark cloud blocking out stars. The Coalition fleet was already engaging. Energy weapons lit up the void. Missiles streaked across the darkness. The battle groups attacked with their traditional ferocity. And the swarm was winning. Their shields are adapting, reported. Coalition weapons are only effective for the first few shots. After that, nothing. Hold position, ordered. Let them think we're just reinforcements. The swarm began to push forward. Coalition ships exploded. Hundreds of them. Thousands of lives gone in flashes of light. Sir, we have to do something, said. Wait. The swarm focused on the largest Coalition ships, the ones with the most powerful weapons. They were being methodical, efficient, calculating. Now, said quietly, all ships attack pattern random, take us in. Finally, his hands flew over the controls. The Perseverance dove toward the swarm, not following any standard approach vector, just gut instinct and human unpredictability. The rest of the fleet followed, each ship flying its own pattern. No coordination, no computer calculations, just 300 pilots flying by feel. The swarm's defenses tried to track them, failed. The attack vectors made no sense. Fire, ordered. Solid metal slugs punched into swarm ships. Their shields, designed for energy weapons, barely slowed the projectiles down. Hull breaches appeared. Atmosphere vented. The swarm was hurt. They're adapting, called from her station, adjusting shield frequencies. Switch to missiles, ordered. Chemical explosives detonated against swarm hulls. Simple, primitive, and devastating. The swarm's shields couldn't adapt fast enough. They were designed to counter advanced technology, not 100-year-old weapons. The battle became chaos. Human ships wove through the swarm fleet, firing, dodging, moving in patterns that made no logical sense. Flew the Perseverance like she was dancing, trusting her instincts over any computer. A swarm ship exploded, then another. The impossible was happening. Humanity was winning. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships, small and primitive, darted between massive swarm vessels like insects attacking giants. But these insects had teeth. Watched another swarm ship break apart under sustained fire. The Perseverance shook as a near-miss sent debris scattering across their hull. Shields would be nice right now, muttered from engineering. Shields would get us killed, replied. How's our armor holding? 60% intact. We can take a few more hits. But something was wrong. The swarm was falling back, regrouping. Their attacks were becoming more coordinated. They're learning, said. Even our random patterns, they're starting to predict us. How long before they fully adapt? Asked. Maybe an hour, maybe less. Looked at the tactical display. They had destroyed 30 swarm ships, a victory by any measure, but there were still hundreds left, and if the swarm adapted to human tactics, the advantage would be gone. We need to hit their command center, said. End this before they can adapt. We don't know where it is, replied. Had been working quietly at her station, analyzing data from the battle. I think I do, she said. The swarm ships don't communicate with radio or quantum signals. They use something else. But when I map their movement patterns, there's a focal point, a ship they're all oriented toward. She brought up the display. Deep in the swarm formation, one ship stood out, not the largest but the most protected. The hive ship breathed. Take it out and the whole swarm collapses. How do we reach it? Asked. There are 100 swarm ships between us and them. Had been talking with the survivor. Says the hive ship phases in and out of normal space. It's never fully here. That's why no one's hit it before. Wonderful, said. How do we shoot something that's not completely in our dimension? We don't, said, still working through data. We wait for it to phase in, then hit it before it can phase out again. And how do we know when it'll phase in? Asked. Pulled up more calculations, wave patterns, probability curves, quantum mathematics that made head hurt just looking at them. According to this, it should phase in approximately. There's a 73% chance it'll appear in Sector 12 Delta in the next 20 minutes. 73%, said. That's not exactly certain. No coalition captain would take that bet, observed. Smiled. Good thing I'm a human captain. He opened fleet-wide communications. All ships continue the attack. Keep the swarm busy. Perseverance is going hunting. Brought the ship about. Setting course for Sector 12 Delta. Hope you're right about this. So do I, admitted. They flew through the chaos of battle. Swarm ships fired at them, but dodged with moves that no computer could calculate. A coalition cruiser exploded to their left. A human frigate to their right rammed a swarm vessel, both ships dying in the collision. Approaching Sector 12 Delta, reported. No sign of the hive ship. Give it time, said, though her voice was uncertain. They waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. The battle raged around them. Watched the empty space where the hive ship should appear. Said quietly, we should rejoin the fleet. 30 more seconds. We're sitting ducks out here. 20 seconds. A swarm ship noticed them, turning to attack. Energy weapons charged. Shouted. 10 seconds. The swarm ship fired. And the hive ship appeared. It materialized directly in front of them, massive and terrible. The swarm's weapons fire meant for Perseverance struck their own hive ship instead. Evasive, ordered, everything we have now. Threw the ship into a spiral, fired every weapon, missiles, even the small defense cannons, all of it hammering into the hive ship's hull. The hive ship's shields came up, but they were calibrated for energy weapons. The physical projectiles punched through. Explosions rippled across its surface. It's trying to phase out, shouted. Don't let it, ordered. Kept firing. The hive ship shimmered, partially fatting, but the continuous impacts disrupted its phase drive. It couldn't fully leave. Other human ships saw what was happening and converged. Dozens of them, all firing their primitive weapons. The hive ship, designed to command from safety, was trapped and helpless. Its hull breached. Internal explosions lit up the darkness. The massive vessel began to break apart. And across the battlefield, the swarm fell into chaos. Ships stopped coordinating. Their movements became random, confused. Without their hive ship's guidance, they were just individual vessels, no longer a unified threat. The coalition forces saw the change and pressed their attack. Human ships hunted down the confused swarm vessels. One by one, they fell. 3 hours later, it was over. The swarm was destroyed. Scattered remnants fled into deep space, but the main force was gone. Sat in his command chair, exhausted. Around the bridge, his crew looked the same, tired, battered, alive. Coalition Command is sending a message, said. Chancellor's face appeared on the screen. His crystal body was cracked and dim, but he was smiling, or what passed for a smile in his species. Captain said, on behalf of the Coalition, I offer our deepest gratitude. You have saved us all. We were happy to help, Chancellor. I must also offer an apology. We called humanity unnecessary. We were blind, arrogant fools. We measured value by our own standards and failed to see the worth in difference. Can you forgive us? Looked at his crew, nodded slightly, gave a small smile, just shrugged. There's nothing to forgive, Chancellor. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after. 6 months later, stood before the Coalition Council again. But this time it was different. This time, humans sat not in the observer section but at the main table. Full members, equal partners. President was there too, officially representing Earth. Chancellor had stepped down, recommending take his place. She had declined but accepted a position on the Leadership Council. The Coalition recognizes the contributions of humanity, said formally, not just in this crisis but in reminding us of an essential truth. Advancement is not superiority. Technology is not wisdom. Every species, every way of thinking has value. We were stronger with humanity than without them. We will not make that mistake again. The Council voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership with special status. Human ships would work alongside coalition forces. Human researchers would join collaborative projects. But more importantly, the coalition would study human methods, learn from human thinking, embrace the value of simple, direct, unpredictable approaches. Afterward, found on an observation deck, she was watching Earth, blue and beautiful in the distance. We did it, she said. We survived, corrected. More than that, we proved something, that being underestimated is sometimes an advantage, that simple can beat complex, that humans matter. Do you think it'll stick, or will they forget in a few years? Considered this. I think they'll remember. The galaxy almost died because it became too advanced, too similar in its thinking. We showed them the value of diversity, not just in biology but in approach, in perspective. Had taken a position as coalition tactical advisor. His first recommendation was to maintain a fleet of low-tech vessels as a strategic reserve. The coalition approved immediately. Led a new research program studying the relationship between advancement and vulnerability. Her first paper, The Advantage of Obsolescence, was required reading across the coalition. Became head of a new technical institute teaching primitive engineering. It was the most popular program in the coalition. Apparently, lots of species wanted to learn how to build things that just worked, simply and reliably. Trained a new generation of pilots in instinctive flying. Her classes were chaos, but her students were the best in the fleet. And he returned to the Perseverance, now flagship of the Strategic Response Fleet. A fleet built on human principles, adaptable, unpredictable, and never assuming that advanced meant invincible. One night, alone in his quarters, received a message from an unknown source. When he opened it, he found a simple text. "Thank you for reminding us that everyone matters, even those we think we don't need, especially those we think we don't need." It was signed by thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds, all of them alive because humanity had been underestimated. Smiled and looked out at the stars. 3 years ago he had felt useless, redundant, unnecessary. Now he knew the truth. In an infinite universe with infinite threats and infinite challenges, there was no such thing as unnecessary. Every species had value. Every perspective mattered. Every different way of thinking was a tool in the galaxy's survival. Humanity wasn't better than other species. They weren't smarter or stronger or wiser. They were just different, and sometimes different was exactly what the galaxy needed. The Perseverance received new orders, a distress call from the frontier, a mystery that needed solving, read the orders and smiled. "Ready the ship," he told his crew. "We have work to do." And in the vast galaxy, once again full of hope and possibility, humanity sailed on, not as unnecessary observers but as valued partners, not proving they were the best but proving that everyone has worth. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity had found its place among the stars.